And I'm here on the Carillon battlefield, the heart of Ticonderoga's landscape. This area that we preserve here at Fort Ticonderoga is the site of numerous engagements, going back to the beginning of the 17th century in 1609, all the way through the War for American Independence. But the core of it, the key battlefield here at Ticonderoga, is where I am right now, the Carillon battlefield, where we see one of the largest engagements of the 7 Years' War, what we often know here as the French and Indian War, between the French, the British, and their various native allies. And it is here that a battle was fought in the summer of 1758 that would sear its memory into soldiers from both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. That summer, the British Army assembled a force that was going to finally reduce the French presence here at Fort Carillon, what the French called Ticonderoga, and nearly 16,000 British regulars and American provincial soldiers were assembled at the southern end of Lake George and rowed down that lake to assault the positions here at Fort Carillon. Facing them on the other side of the line was a French army of less than 4,000 men, primarily French regulars, but also colonial troupes de la marine, Canadian militia, and a handful of native allies. The British advanced on this position, rolling through the French outposts, and on July 8th of 1758 prepared to assault the lines here with a coup de main, hoping to seize the positions and ultimately, without having to lay formal siege to Fort Ticonderoga, Fort Carillon, to capture the position. The French, for their part, knew that they were outnumbered, and so on this site, this wide swath of land on the Ticonderoga Peninsula, began to basically level every standing tree in this area to create a log breastwork that at its height, where I'm standing, was about 8 feet high. The tops of those trees were lopped off and laid out in front of me, behind you now, in a series of what was called an abattis, basically sharpening the branches, laying those branches facing towards the enemy to both screen the French positions and also delay any attacking force. Shortly after noon, the British sent their Rangers and light infantry to screen a series of attack columns that were going to throw themselves into the line, hoping to capture them again in a coup de main. The French waited behind these positions, and as the columns of British troops approached, they began to open fire. Concentrating their forces behind the lines, giving their best marksmen room on the parapet, and having other soldiers loading muskets and handing them up to them, the French were able to achieve a staggering rate of fire, as the British, in their uncoordinated series of attacks, stumbled into this death trap. Repeated attacks over the day failed to dislodge the French positions because of their high rate of fire and their ability to move their reinforcements on the inside of their positions to different parts of their line where they faced a threat. Just over to my right, we see one of the most valiant assaults of the day by the British 42nd Regiment of Foot, the Highland Regiment. Nearly 1,000 strong, this regiment breached the French parapets but was beaten back, losing over the course of the day almost half the regimental strength in killed and wounded. By the time night fell on July of 1758, the British had pulled back their forces. None of their assaults had been successful, and they left nearly 2,000 men dead or wounded across the battlefield. When we add the French casualties, which were also quite high for their respective size, we see that the battle here at Carillon was the bloodiest engagement fought on the North American continent until the Civil War of the 1860s. The British precipitously retreated back to Lake George and left the French masters of the position. The French, for their part, felt that the British were going to come back the next day and were surprised that they had retreated so quickly. This provided a great morale boost to the French war effort. However, it wasn't enough, and another British army came back here to Fort Carillon in 1759 and finally forced its surrender, in which point this became Fort Ticonderoga, the British renaming it from the Iroquoian word meaning a land between two waters, the name that we generally know it by today. But this battlefield remains a central feature of the landscape. And during the War of Independence, American forces, notably a brigade of Pennsylvania soldiers under the command of General Arthur St. Clair, rebuilt the lines here. And what stands behind me today at this salient angle are the earthworks prepared by Pennsylvania soldiers in the Revolution, who quite literally were prepared to repeat history. Colonel Anthony Wayne wrote to Benjamin Franklin that he would give the British what they got in 1758 if they made another effort to take this position. And so this battle had a lasting effect, as we see one of the very few engagements in the Revolutionary War being fought on the exact site of a battle from that last conflict, adding another layer of cultural significance and history to this battlefield. Just one part of the remarkable site we have here at Fort Ticonderoga.